Hello, everybody. Previously, we discussed the need for Major League Baseball to rejuvenate some of their practices regarding marketing, social media strategies, and gameplay. Today, we will discuss our strategy to implement those changes. In this presentation, we will detail our stakeholders' assessment, change management approach, organizational readiness, communication strategy, and implementation plan, which includes our goals, tactical and logistical considerations, and timeframe. Our stakeholders can be divided into two groups, active and passive. Active stakeholders displayed by the blue sticky notes are those that have some or significant influence in the implementation of these changes. Passive stakeholders are those that will be impacted by the changes carried out by the active stakeholders and are captured by the green sticky note. The MLB league office and owners carry the most influence in this project and will ultimately decide if it is carried out. Despite their influence, they have been somewhat resistant to change in previous years, which is evident by the current state of marketing practices and gameplay pace. It is crucial that this group has a firm understanding of how all changes are for the betterment of the league and aimed at increasing public interest in the league. It is also important to keep all passive stakeholders, especially fans and potential fans, informed about what changes will be taking place because the success of this initiative is ultimately dependent on their sentiment towards the changes. To establish change within the MLB organization, we must make use of influential early adopters. The innovators group seen in this graphic will consist of the league office and owners. They must recruit highly respected members of league and team departments to help diffuse the change to the early majority made up of mid-level employees who will only adopt the change when they see how beneficial it is. Doing so will bridge the chasm and establish momentum that will carry over into attracting members of the late majority and laggards. A different approach must be taken to get fans on board with the changes. We will need to conduct market research with surveys and focus groups to determine what changes are most effective in attracting and sustaining a larger audience. A change like limiting pickoff attempts might not be a decisive factor in attracting a larger audience and not worth the time and effort to change, so we must find what changes are the stickiest to consumers.
Before implementing our change initiative, however, we must determine how ready MLB is for our plan. Some groups who may resist this change would be MLB executives, who have continually avoided fixing many of the league's issues, the traditionalist fans, who have yet to embrace a new age of baseball, and umpires who have come under fire for their recent performance. Those who would embrace this change would be the players, team social media staffs, and potential younger fans looking for a more exciting version of baseball. The only issues that may impede our change efforts would be currently low revenues for small market teams and a lack of social media personnel league wide.
Our communication strategy has four major points. The first being use of brand new social media department within the league office to show league executives the importance of a far-reaching social media presence through the use of data, along with practices that worked well within the NBA and NFL. With no shortage of connectors within league circles, this department would also serve as a means to inform and communicate with other departments and about how an increased social media presence may change how the league operates. Secondly, utilizing in-game social media coordinators to diffuse the new voice of the MLB through each individual's team's social media staff, as well as increasing fan engagement on these platforms in order to better connect the fans to the league, which has been a problem in recent years. This would allow these coordinators to express their new vision for the MLB directly to the fans themselves so that they can not only bring in a younger audience, but also show the traditionalist fan base why these changes should be beneficial for the sport. Thirdly, holding forums and training sessions to properly instruct umpires on the rollout of new rules and how they can be applied more effectively to reduce missed calls and arguments with managers slash players that slow the game down. And lastly, financial structure changes would have to be communicated through CBA negotiations. The CBA stands for Collective Bargaining Agreement between the league and the Players Association. A third party would have to be brought in to explain the long-term benefits of changing the financial structure and how it would make the sport more competitive and unpredictable, following the sort of guidelines that the NFL has done to increase parity throughout its league.
To properly implement our change initiative, we split our plan into two phases, with the first focusing on increasing the sport's popularity. Our first step would be to reinstitute the in-game social media coordinator positions, now including more responsibilities in the league office, so that they could assist team social media staffs with fan engagement and content creation. MLB social media accounts would then begin sharing more exciting content that increases the visibility of the league's best players, such as player takeovers that allow fans to interact directly with some of their favorite players. From there, MLB Advanced Media's overly strict social media policies would be loosened to allow third-party users to share highlights and other MLB content on their accounts, along with restrictions on team accounts posting highlights also being removed as well. Finally, there would be an increased emphasis on social media analysis that gauges public perception and allows MLB to cater content towards what fans want to see. The second phase of our plan would then focus on improving the sport itself, both on the field and on the balance sheet. We would start with the development and testing of new rules in the minor leagues that address pace of play issues and create more action, rather than simply trying to shorten the time needed for games. These potential rules include the use of robot umpires, a shot clock for pitchers, and limits on defensive shifts and pickoff attempts. From there, the league's financial structure would be reorganized by instituting a salary cap, player spending minimum, and max contracts to improve the competitive balance between big and small market teams. Finally, to further decrease that existing profit margin, the league's revenue sharing plan will be revised to include more than just 50% of team TV revenues in order to level the playing field.
There are 4 short-term goals. The first is new rules to help with pace of play implemented by the 2022 season. This is to help get rid of the stigma that baseball is a boring and slow sport. The second short-term goal is agree to a new financial structure for the CBA prior to the 2022 season. This will help create parity within the league, so that way there's more and different teams winning the championship every year. The third goal is to create podcasts and other media, and they should start production immediately with the goal to air the first installment by the 2023 season. Podcasts and talk shows would be the first up, but a somewhat longer term goal would be to get documentaries such as the 30 for 30 series produced at a later year. And the last short term goal is to loosen social media policies by the 2023 season, with the revisions being made as seen fit. I leave that revisions being made as seen fit part in there because you never know what problems may arise and these policies may need to be altered. Anchoring the change. It's much easier to anchor the change if the change itself has had a positive influence on the organization. So making sure the change itself is productive and positive would be the first step. The second step would be for senior leadership to help the process by reiterating how the change has had a positive impact on the organization. So this is just sort of reiterating to the employees that what has happened to the organization is in fact good for the organization. And lastly, the executive should be fully transparent about how well the organization has done at accomplishing this transition. The employees should be able to come to the executives and be told how this has changed their organization for the better. And there shouldn't be any secrets or hidden agendas kept from them, because they have the right to know and will make the process easier with open and honest communication.
We recommend 4 tactical areas that MLB, in particular their active stakeholders, should focus on. We have ranked these areas in order from complex resolve to feasible execution. They are competitive balance and generating revenue league-wide, the implementation of a salary cap or minimum spending. Currently, MLB is the only major sport in America that does not have a salary cap or minimum spending requirement. Again, stressing how critical the social media department will be. And finally, the pace of play must improve dramatically. Creating a competitive balance in MLB will mean that those teams in larger markets pulling in more considerable revenue will have to agree to share more of their income currently not negotiated in the collective bargaining agreement. The competitive balance would allow smaller market teams to sign big name free agents and keep their young players' development into stars. Also, a salary cap would work twofold. It would force those teams who have not spent money on free agents or retaining their current players to do so over the years. It would also create balance because those larger market teams could not pay over the cap. We project that by the 2023 MLB season, all the social media departments league-wide will be up and running at total capacity, along with all the new rules installed to speed up the pace of play. We have also targeted the 2026 MLB season for the competitive balance and salary cap initiative to start to take hold.
To conclude, through our change efforts, we hope to make baseball more appealing to a younger demographic and reverse the trends of declining attendance and viewership.